The name Fink is derived from Foster Inc., Foster Incorporated, and it also a Fink is somebody who's a bit underhand and a bit goes against the grain and works behind the scene. And our motto we started off with that we will put on all our products is integrity towards industry, and really what that means is we really wanted to make sure that if we were introducing products out into the world, if we were going to play part in sort of that, not necessarily mass market, that the product should be really carefully thought through and should be really well made and should last a lifetime. Our philosophy is that if you buy a Fink product, it's going to be something that you're going to pass on to your grandchildren, and that also its aesthetics and its ability to function are going to last as well. So hopefully in 50 years time a Fink product can still sit amongst contemporary objects and hold its own. My origins as a designer started as a gold and silversmith. I studied at the Canberra School of Art. It was halfway through my course that I realised that my grandmother actually went through the 1920s during the arts and crafts movement and actually studied as a metalsmith herself. And that sort of tradition, I guess, and that sort of appreciation for the arts and crafts and for design was sort of passed on to my father, and then my father on to me. Another thing that probably had an influence on me, or has influenced my creative practice, is I spent a lot of time travelling around Australia looking at both Indigenous art and just the natural Australian environment. My parents were very interested in exploring that during the 70s, and I think then when I studied with Ragnar, who was a Norwegian silversmith, where Scandinavian design is sort of rooted in the natural environment, it was such a perfect sort of nexus of my experiences as a child and his sort of knowledge and technical aesthetic understanding. We sort of saw what Alessi was doing right at the end of my education, and that was sort of interesting, and Memphis was around, and so I started to develop an interest in more sort of classic design, and I think that was sort of fueled also by my interest in sort of process and being able to sort of produce things industrially in ways that you wouldn't be able to do necessarily by hand, and also as a way of fueling the possibility of being able to actually survive from a related sort of field as a silversmith. So setting up my practice, I was very keen after finishing art school to have my own workshop, so I set up my workshop in the garage of the rented house that I had, and I basically saw it as a challenge. I didn't have many tools, and I thought, well, I can't see this as a disadvantage. I've got to go, well, what can I make with the limited number of tools that I have? And I was also determined not to go back into art school, because I did actually have the opportunity to go and use the equipment, but I was determined to try and make things that only use the equipment and tools that I had in my little workshop. And gradually I built up things, and I started doing commission jobs for fitting out restaurants and shops and things like that. But after probably a period of 5 years, I started to sort of get a bit disillusioned by that, because I sort of felt like I wasn't really doing some of the things that I wanted to do. And I was having to work really hard doing that and making my one-off work at the same time, and then and I was selling a little bit of one-off work, which was teapots and coffee pots and those sorts of hand-formed vessels. And then I had the opportunity to have an exhibition in Germany with two of the world's best silversmiths who were like my seniors, and it was an exhibition that travelled around some of the museums in Germany, and through that I made contact with Alessi, or Alessi saw what I was doing and was interested in getting me to design some work for them. This is in 1992, and sort of cut a story short, they asked me to design something, and then I didn't hear anything from them. It was before the days of email, and with the time difference it was difficult to get any form of communication with them. And after sort of probably 6 months, I said, you know what, I just want to do it myself and have my own autonomy. And I guess it was sort of serendipitously or spurred on. It was just one of those moments in life where everything sort of happened to coincide at the right moment. And I had made it the water jug for, I had to design a variety of things for this new restaurant, which was focusing on Australian foods and natural foods. And they asked me, as one of the things they wanted was 3 water jugs for the total price of $450, which is about what one water jug sells for now. And so I thought, well, I can't do this by hand, I can't hammer it, so I thought, I've got to start trying to learn how to press things. So I made myself up my own little kind of press with a garage press, and made the tooling, and that's how the jug started. And it just led from that point on, because it was used in the restaurant and people wanted them, so I started to sort of refine the process, and we're still refining the process, the way that the jug's made, still, you know, almost 20 years on.
I guess I sort of came in and Fink was sort of running in a small artist cooperative with only Robert and one other person, and the business was quite small. We only had one product, and so then we added companion products, and then we expanded the range very slowly from there. So the business has kind of evolved in a kind of a bit of a slightly ad-lib way when we've worked with particular projects with other artists, and things have evolved that way, or it's been very set where we've decided we want to do this particular product, or we want to expand this product in another area, or Robert's been playing with a particular process that has eventuated in the potential to produce a product. A lot of the impetus has been to put back what we get in terms of any form of profit, which is not very much, into the research and development, and also working with other artists on new and different projects. And so over the years we've worked with about 8 different artists, and artist designers, and that has always been, you know, just as much as important as being about putting back and teaching young and emerging people about the whole process of the research and the development, the prototyping, how you go about putting a production piece into production, and the things that you need to consider along that line. So it's sort of like a mentoring process, as well as making something financially viable for them and for us. I think the other important thing that people need to know about Fink is that we don't mass produce our products. We only produce them in small quantities, sometimes 100 maximum, sometimes we only do 20 or 30 at a time. And each one is very much hand finished, and there's a lot of TLC that goes into creating each piece. And so quite often some of them are slightly different than the others, and there's all sort of the individuality that I think is embedded in each piece, which is important. And they do slightly change over the years of production as they get made.
Within Fink's practice, there's several aspects to it. There is obviously the production stuff, which I have to be involved with managing staff, and also doing production myself from time to time. But we also do commission work as well. So we do things like half a dozen different awards every year. They're all quite high-end awards for like Swimming Australia or Sports Commission. We also do outside anodising work, because we've got our own anodising facility. We offer an anodising surface, and that actually helps to offset a lot of the running costs of the anodising. And we do also larger commissions, so public artworks and commissions for large buildings. So for example, we've just finished the 6 internal fit outs of 6 lifts in a 7-star hotel, which has used a lot of recycled materials and interesting light effects and so forth. But probably my most favourite commission would probably be the Journey, which was a large commission that ActuAGL, which is the local gas, water and electricity authority, commissioned for their the ground floor of their foyer, and it's a big lighting sculpture. We collaborated with Frost Design from Sydney and Cool On Lighting in Melbourne, and that was great fun. It was great to push the boundaries and to learn a lot about new technologies. And then I guess a lot of the reason for starting Fink was because I couldn't survive as a practicing artist craftsperson. So one of the core things that's still very important to me as a maker is to continue to make exhibition work and to explore the boundaries of my exhibition work. And I think one of the great benefits of doing production and learning about all of those sort of engineering processes and manufacturing processes is that, and also having learned how to operate all types of machinery and having new machines that can do all sorts of interesting things, is that that has fed back into my one-off work in quite an unexpected way, where I'm able to sort of use the equipment to make things that I would never have dreamt of or never have been able to if I just stayed as a practicing artist craftsperson. So my practice as an artist is still very, very important to me, and it's something I cherish that I can still continue to do.